Here is the breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. North Korea has fired new anti-air missiles, escalating tensions in East Asia. In Europe, Germany's Munich airport was temporarily closed after drone sightings sparked security concerns, and Israel continues airstrikes in Gaza, with dozens reported killed in recent attacks. Welcome to SATV's International Affairs. My name is Rashid Kanchan. I'll be your host. I have a very distinguished panelist today at the studio, John Charles Dalton, international consultant who has experience working in couple of continents and more than 40 countries. We have Sir Scott A. Leckman, my very favorite, joining from Salt Lake City, Utah. And we have Norman Flatt-Barnes from Washington, D.C., SATV's geopolitical correspondent based in Washington. And very soon, Shamsul Alam Pantha, our international affairs commentator, will be joining from Miami, Florida. Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin with Norman. Norman, what political deals or concessions are most likely to break the deadlock, and which party currently holds leverage?
Warm greetings from Washington, D.C. Today, we're still in a stalemate regarding the Congress. It's Sunday here, and we have no change in attitudes. The Democrats are still pushing the need for health care referendums and adjustments, and the Republicans is still moving on with their plans. So right now, we're looking at another week of basically people just buckling down and holding to their plan. So right now, the country's still shut down.
Still shut down. I want to go to Salt Lake City, Utah, where Professor Scott Leckman is there. Very humble, very knowledgeable gentleman. Sir, my question would be, how will this prolonged shutdown affect U.S. credibility internationally, especially in handling global crises by Donald Trump and his administration? Sir Scott Leckman.
Well, these shutdowns are a thing we do here. They don't make much sense. A lot will depend on the length of this shutdown. Unfortunately, our politicians are rewarded for conflict, not for accomplishments. And as you form your new democracy, you may want to take some lessons of what not to do from the U.S.
Lessons learned, yes.
We've had 20 of these since 1976. And the last one was the first Trump presidency, and that lasted 35 days. Now, as you can imagine, there are impacts to such a thing. We furloughed more than 300,000 civilian Defense Department employees. And of course, that can't be good. The State Department has furloughed more than a third of their staff. And there are economic impacts. The last shutdown, it was estimated that for each day, there was a decrease in the GDP of 0.1%. Now, the other thing that's important that the government does is it keeps data. So while the government is shut down, we're not keeping track, or we're not announcing jobless claims, monthly retail sales, the consumer price index, the producer price index, and actually that may be something that Trump loves, because I think all these numbers are getting worse at this time. But somehow the stock market keeps climbing. So don't expect me to explain that.
Gold keep moving. Yeah.
But in short, this is political theater. There's going to be some political winners and losers, but I don't think the world at large is going to be affected much.
All right, sir. Let me come back to studio where there is a gentleman who can explain better than me at least. Sir, which federal programs or agencies are most vulnerable and what are the downstream risks, especially in public health, regulation, national security, national defense issues, which federal programs or agencies would be vulnerable in such a situation, sir?
Well, as Scott has pointed out, every federal agency, every executive branch agency has to submit and did submit a downsizing plan at the beginning of this period of shutdown. And that downsizing plan identifies all of the reduction in force that could be possible, called RIF, all of the furloughs that could be possible, all of the reorganizations that might be necessary. And so there's a plan in place for every agency to take a bit of the pain. The agencies that are most vulnerable to the cruelty of Donald Trump, these are my targets, I'm going to go after these, are the smaller independent agencies of government, of which there are many. You know, we have executive agencies, those are set, they're cabinet level, but below them we have a huge number of independent agencies and regulatory agencies and commissions that are also funded by the federal government. All of those are shut down in some respect, but some of them can be eviscerated. For example, consumer protection agencies, that is a special Elizabeth Warren creation or support. Watch that. I'm sure that Mr. Trump will go after that agency specifically. But as an example of an independent agency, a CIA is an independent agency. EPA is an independent agency. And so depending on how he wants to wield the axe, he could cut the agency in half. He could eliminate programs, which is easy to do. And when people who are on furlough, they don't necessarily have to come back. Some of them may simply say, I'm sick of this, and resign. But there are numerous very, very important agencies of government that are independent agencies, so-called, because they are established by Congress to do a specific purpose. And he could just go after some of those and cut them up if he wanted to. Those are the ones that are most vulnerable.
One questions are coming from audience. President Donald Trump is unable to break this deadlock. Republicans are unable to break this deadlock. And Democrats are not cooperating. My question to you, sir, can the judiciary or courts intervene to compel Congress or White House to act, or is the shutdown purely a political gridlock?
Well, right now it's a gridlock. I think after the fact, some employees who were affected by the furlough or the reduction in force could take their case to court. But the authority of Congress to appropriate money is what's holding up, what's making this impossible. They cannot appropriate the funds necessary to continue the government. That is in their primary responsibility and authority. So the judiciary cannot intervene at this point. I personally think that, having, as I said, I was the program manager on a couple of programs during a shutdown. And so you have to send people home and stop doing any activities and stop contracts. I think it's possible that this week would have some kind of a stopgap measure. It won't be exactly a clean, so-called clean continuing resolution. But I think that people realize that for a 7-week period, it's not worth the fight to continue to do this over something which can be resolved by administrative means. So right. I look for a solution this week.
The solution is quick. I want to get back to Utah, where Professor Scott Lekman is there. Sir, may I ask you, how should states, cities, or local governments preparing themselves to respond to the federal paralysis at this stage?
Well, state government is still funded, but they are very dependent on federal funding for many of its programs. And, the federal government's everywhere. Here in my state of Utah, We have lots of national parks, and tourism is a big deal. And so cutting back on staff at national parks are going to be met with frowns from tourists. So, yes, I think state officials are going to be encouraging their federal officials to try to resolve this as soon as possible.
All right, Mr. Norman, would you please let us know what are the possibilities you can see that Washington is preparing to bring or break this deadlock? Do you see any activities from Democrats or Republicans or from President himself?
Like we stated and we're discussing, we're in a deadlock. The issue is clearly in the hands of Congress. The Republicans and the Democrats has to come to terms on how they can work their way through this process and put together a budget so we can operate as a country. They have issues. Like I mentioned, the Democrats has their issues. They want dealt with the healthcare issue, which is a very serious one. And Republicans has issues that they want to move forward there with their plan for the next at least couple of years. So both are at odds right now with each other regarding how they want to move forward. So right now the two parties have to sit down and talk and work this thing out. What they're doing right now is sitting back, waiting at home, playing golf, or talking on podcasts is not helping the situation. The only thing that's going to happen, they have to come together and sit down and talk this thing through, and we can move on move on with the budget and get things done. If not, there are going to be severe consequences regarding their positions. People are going to start questioning, do we have the right representatives
all right.
in the House? They can't talk.
Yeah. All right, Norman. The problem started from Congress, and Congress has to come forward to solve this problem. Let us talk about the State Department restructuring and decline of U.S. diplomatic apparatus worldwide. This is also a big news in Washington Post this morning. Secretary of State Marco Rubio's proposed reorganization would eliminate 132 offices and hundreds of positions and reduce U.S. global diplomatic footprint. The reorganization targets many democracy, human rights, and war crimes focused offices. The State Department is also planning to lay off 15% of its domestic staff. This is also a very huge news in Wall Street Journal and New York Post this morning. My question would be to Norman first. What are the trade-offs when eliminating diplomacy, democracy, and human rights bureaus to prioritize efficiency and national interest? This is a big question to you, Norman.
So this is all part of the Trump administration plan. The Republicans historically are really pushing small government. So they always felt that we had too many employees, too many programs, too many functions, and they want to downsize. So this is a prime opportunity, having the shutdown, to really assess the need of these programs. And some of these programs will be eliminated, and some of these positions will be shifted and moved around to meet the needs of his global plan to deal with other countries and also to deal here. And basically, they want to reduce the number of employees.
And if I ask the different questions to Sir Scott Lechman from Salt Lake City, Utah, will this retrenchment leave vacuums that other people like China and Russia will fill, Sir Scott Lechman?
Well, what these cuts mean is that we have reduced soft power. And Trump did some of this in his first term. And his Secretary of Defense, Jim Mattis, said, if you cut my soft power, you're going to have to give me more bullets. And so this is very sad for me, and I'm sure John as well with his background. But they've just done away with USAID, development aid. And the Lancet produced an article earlier this year that if this aid is not replaced, 14 million people are going to die. So it's very disturbing. Now, it used to be that the U.S. led with values, things like democracy and human rights and rule of law. Those things are not being emphasized currently.
All right, sir.
Now, Trump
Yes,
is
go ahead, sir. Go
a
ahead.
disruptor. Trump is a disruptor, and his base loves it. And the only people who love it more would be President Xi and President Putin.
All right, sir. As you referred to John Charles Dalton, he's in the studio. We are very proud to have him in the studio. Sir, I want to add one more question for you also. How might U.S. diplomats and foreign missions adapt or resist this centralization and downsizing the government?
I think you want to get along, you go along. If you're in the State Department and you hold an ambassadorial level position or a high level position, you just swallow this bitter pill and go on. And you don't have a lot of scope. Most of the layoffs and most of the cuts in the State Department and most of the reorganization will affect the national employees, not the international employees. That's the primary levels of cut. And if you want to look at what Scott was talking about, the values, we represent certain values. What's being cut is foreign assistance and humanitarian affairs. 70% of the workforce has been cut. If you're looking at the energy and the environment section, okay, 45% of the employees are being cut. So these represent, real issues that the United States will not be able to pursue with the vigor that it could if it was working overseas with a full-blown staff. Now, we don't know yet what individual ambassadorships or offices will do. It's always difficult to operate in a country, any big country, with a reduced staff. But most of these are in the State Department. People tended to be there for a very, very long time. They are very competent. They're seasoned veterans, if you will. And sometimes they hold to their positions very firmly when new administrations come in, and they become targets because they're the wise man in the building. And so it's like, well, we don't want to hear about this guy anymore. He's given us too much trouble. Let's get rid of him. But foreign missions will adapt very easily. They might have some. The thing that's really difficult is the fact that USAID has been eliminated. This was one of the key programs of soft power that the United States used to really influence the world, to influence their partnerships with foreign countries. But we'll all survive. It's just, we've been through this.
After the statements of three very respectable Americans in today's show, one question comes: could Congress or future administration reverse or reinstate parts of the diplomatic apparatus, and how disruptive would that be? Because Donald Trump is changing global world order, and also administrative.
Well, under the law, it's difficult to fire employees unless you reorganize. And it's very, very clear under the Office of Personnel Management and so forth that if there's a reorganization for greater efficiency, then in fact you may have a reduction in force. and put people on furlough. So you can't randomly helter-skelter fire people, that you don't like because of their political leanings. But if you reorganize them out of existence, that's within the scope of the law. That's the same thing in my state when I was in Massachusetts state government. That's exactly how things worked. A new administration would come in and they would reorganize, and certain people would be no longer employed. But to the main question, yes, you will find that future administrations will have to put things back into place. When the Clinton administration, when Obama came in, of course, Hillary Clinton made some reorganizations in the State Department. Many of the foreign assistance and humanitarian affairs structure that's being reorganized now was put in place by Secretary of State Clinton. So this is a common practice among administrations to try to get rid of people who have been brought in by the past administration.
They are just for their advantages of what the scope of work they create. And I want to ask one question to Sir Scott Lechman. What is the threshold at which cutting diplomatic capacity becomes a strategic liability rather than an internal reform? Scott Lechman from Salt Lake City, Utah, sir.
When does it become structurally bad? I think probably John can answer that better than I can. Right now, we have less than half of ambassadors appointed, and that can't be a good thing. So, I don't see how any of this is good news for those that wish the U.S. to have more influence in the world.
All right, sir. Time has come to go for a short break. We'll be back and we'll discuss wars, conflicts, and humanitarian crises in the world, especially Gaza, Ukraine, and Sudan also. We'll be back soon.
এখন 16 কোটি মানুষের হাতের নাগালে দীর্ঘ 30 বছর ধরে বিশ্বস্ততা ও দ্রুততার সাথে সেবা দেওয়ায় গ্রাহক সেবায় এখন শীর্ষে। বাংলাদেশে গ্রাহক সেবার সাফল্যের পর এসএ পরিবহন পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস এখন বিশ্ব বাণিজ্য কেন্দ্র সিঙ্গাপুরে। আপনার যে কোনো পণ্য সিঙ্গাপুর থেকে বাংলাদেশে বুকিং এর জন্য যোগাযোগ করুন। এসএ পরিবহন প্রাইভেট লিমিটেড, লজিস্টিক্স পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস, 22 Roberts Lane, Singapore 218302. Phone 0065 629 24900. বাংলাদেশ থেকে সিঙ্গাপুরে পণ্য বুকিং এর জন্য যোগাযোগ করুন ঢাকা সহ দেশের যে কোনো 80টি শাখা কেন্দ্রে। এসএ পরিবহন পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস, আপনার সেবা সব সময়।
Welcome, Grand Palace Hotel, Dhaka. A majestic lobby blending timeless elegance with modern design. Experience 5-star comfort in suites and rooms. Sophisticated fine dining restaurant. Crystal clear swimming pool for ultimate relaxation. Modern gym and serene spa for well-being. Perfect venue for corporate events, weddings and parties. Seamless and secured. Elegant and eye-catching design. Indulge, relax, discover the first 5-star gym.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin from Washington, D.C., where Norman, our geopolitical correspondent, is over there. And Norman, you heard the global Samud flotilla, humanitarian aid vessels attempted to reach Gaza. The Israeli military intercepted the maritime, the final boat, detaining all passengers and bringing them to Ashdod. what are the latest you have, and how Washington is considering Israel's this action?
The conversation here in Washington is more so on the Trump's ceasefire deal that Hamas has accepted, and Israel is also very favorable on. And the biggest conversation right now is the scheduled release of the hostages, and whether or not this deal is going to go through. Trump is pushing that. He's talking about it. He's been on the air, talked about the peace deal in the Middle East, how everything is going to work out well and fine. So we're waiting to see exactly how that is going on. The flotilla, that is basically viewed as news from afar. The results of that flotilla attempt was predictable. They were able to, Israelis were able to stop the flotilla, but another flotilla is being prepared to disembark and the ship off shortly. So right now the protests and issues about the treatment of the participants and how we're going to get the people back to their normal routine.
Let's check what Scott Leckman says, because there is not only Hamas, there is Houthi, there is Hezbollah, there is IS, there is Iraqi militias. My question would be to Leckman, how do proxy wars and great power involvement complicate prospects for peace in the Middle East and around the globe?
Well, proxy wars go back a long time to ancient Greece, and the origins of our country. We had France hating Britain, so France helped us to stick it to Britain. So that's how we got our independence. What's fascinating is, when you have, one neighbor fighting another neighbor, that doesn't happen too often. It's pretty stable throughout the years, but in the last 15 years, we've seen an increase in these proxy wars. And, they're called civil wars. And so that it's easy for a bigger nation to supply arms. It's cheaper and less dangerous, because the major powers have nuclear weapons, so they don't want to face off directly. So they participate in these proxy wars, and it makes things harder to resolve. Things, and it takes longer time. For example, the civil war in Lebanon, and more recently, the civil war in Syria. At Lebanon, I think there were six patrons involved in that one, and that took forever to resolve, and still hasn't. So this is one of the bad trends that we're seeing in recent years.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let us come to Sir John Charles Dalton, my very favorite, sir. To be very honest with you, I love your explanation, sir. What is the role of international law, war crimes accountability, and institutions like ICC, United Nations in such conflicts? And just one more thing, whenever two referee or two umpire cannot decide, we go to third umpire. United Nations or ICC is like third umpire. They are the authority. But why they are silent? My two back-to-back question to you.
Yeah, well, first of all, everybody's not signed on to the ICC. There are some countries like the United States which is not a participant signatory to the agreement to establish the International Criminal Court. So that plays into this as well. And because it's a proxy war, you don't always be able to identify who exactly is responsible for the crimes against humanity, which are the reason why you might go to the International Criminal Court. For example, Netanyahu has been charged with crimes against humanity and what he's doing in Gaza. He is a suspect ready for arrest in any of these foreign countries, so-called, but no one is actually going to do that. And so people escape accountability all the time. It's more just eyewash. Occasionally, somebody like Slobodan Milosevic, or one of those guys is involved in a crisis in his country, will be taken to the ICC and tried and convicted. The Gambia and South Africa combined to try to take Israel institutionally to the ICC, got nowhere. I mean, it's some sort of emotional satisfaction. I mean, we got to stop thinking that the UN is going to solve anything as long as people have a veto vote on the Security Council. It's never going to go anywhere.
Right. So you are upset on United Nations. That's very clear. Let me go to Utah, Salt Lake City, where Scott Lekman is there. Sir, how can humanitarian corridors, refugee protection, and reconstruction be better managed at this stage?
Well, that would be hard to manage them worse than what they're doing now. Israel's not interested in humanitarian corridors. And so that's not going to happen until the U.S. forces Netanyahu to do it.
All right, sir. If
Let me just make
yes,
one
yes, please.
You know, when you say I'm down on the Security Council, okay? But I believe, as I said the other day, the United Nations does tremendous good in the world through all of its organizations. 17 organizations inside the UN umbrella are agents for peace, agents for service, have provided great humanitarian support. And so those are to be admired. But the Security Council is basically stuck in its own regulation. They cannot arrive at a decision which they can implement because the United States or Russia or somebody has a veto.
All right. Before I go to Norman, I want to just give an information to Scott Lekman and Norman both. Today, internet is getting down gradually. If for some reason line disconnects, our production team will start to try to connect you once again, because we want to get you till the end of the program. Norman, would you mind to answer one question? What diplomatic pathways exist or fail in ending or de-escalating multi-front conflicts?
You said what organization? Did I hear that right?
Yeah, what diplomatic pathways exist or fail in ending the de-escalating multi-front conflicts?
Currently, we don't have any. Let me honestly, like I said, we have a administration of one, and we have a foreign policy that is being implemented. We're working with the Arab nations to currently deal with the issue in the Middle East, and we're working with Europe regarding the issues regarding Ukraine. And we have our own policy in place through our new Department of War regarding South America and other parts of the world. So we're gonna look at a new shift. We just had the leaders, the military leaders, met in Quantico last week, and there's a new shift in terms of how we want to focus on the America First concept globally. There'll be additional activities done by the military, and we're doing additional stuff in the United States. You know about Chicago and Portland. We deployed in Chicago. The court blocked the move for National Guard in Portland. So there's going to be more of these aggressive approach to dealing with the issues that we consider our national security.
So I think Dalton sir will add something, because America is facing, Donald Trump administration is facing some domestic conflicts with state to state, and how he will face the global conflicts, because I think he is overloaded.
Well, I find the guy's his domestic policies to be so distasteful, that it's hard to look at him. I have to give a little bit of credit to Mr. Donald Trump for the work that he did in setting the framework for the resolution, at least temporarily, of the war in Gaza. I mean, he's ended the slaughter. We hope. I'd like to comment about how Israel is still advancing their wartime efforts, despite the fact that they've agreed in principle to this. But I think what he is trying to, like, on multiple fronts, bring order to some of the biggest hotspots in the world. On the international stage, I think he's actually made some contribution. Domestically, he's been extremely cruel and hurt people. The current issue with health care and child nutrition and the like. This is keeping with the 2025 agenda, which was advanced before the election started. But I don't want to seem as if I'm just simply totally negative, because the man has made, this is a contribution. If they pull it off and the two combatants get together and provide some peace, hats off to him. No peace prize, sorry, but hats off. I mean, he's made a contribution. He did something very, very positive.
Right. And this week, the Nobel Committee probably going to declare the name of Nobel Peace Prize winners. I mean, I'm sure Donald Trump is searching or looking his name in the first line of serials. As you mentioned, the hotspots of the world, I want to go to Russia. A Russian drone strike hit a railway station in Ukraine, killing 1 person and injuring 30. Ukrainian officials condemned it as a double tap strike targeting rescuers and evacuators. Sir, my question would be to you. The first question is, do you think Putin is not going to listen anyone? He is going to continue his invasion in Ukraine now and in future the NATO countries or European countries?
Well, I think he would draw the line. I don't think he's ready, and I think at all the losses that they've suffered, I don't think he's ready actually to confront NATO. His battle with Ukraine, as I said before, he's a Christo-fascist. Zelensky is of Jewish faith. Putin is being led by Kirill, the patriarch of the Russian Orthodox Church. He is on a campaign, a crusade, if you will, to recapture Ukraine as previously in the Soviet Union, to make it part of Mother Russia. He will not be convinced in any way to give up the battle, unless and until there are some kind of elections that could be held in Ukraine. If he were to call a ceasefire, in order to allow, under the constitutional law of Ukraine, an election to be held. They cannot hold it. They're not allowed in times of crisis and conflict to hold an election. Hold an election. Maybe there'll be a change in government. Maybe Putin would then be convinced to sit down and talk to the new powers that be in Ukraine. I don't believe he is ever disposed intellectually, emotionally, religiously, to sit down with Volodymyr Zelensky.
He will not. He made it clear to the media and to his cabinet also. Sir, what are the risk of escalation or miscalculation as alliances militarize more aggressively?
Well, that's always a problem. I mean, just the fact that planes can stray into another territory and may be seen as aggressive. Usually what happens, they scramble a couple of jets that go up and meet the plane which has entered into its airspace, and that plane is escorted back to its home country. Very rarely are there confrontations direct. But now we have drones. Drones are pilotless. They're regulated, run by computer. A computer operator sitting in Sebastopol can operate a drone that penetrates a foreign airspace. Those are the ones that are going to be problematic if they cause some damage or destruction, as was done, as you said, at that train station. It's bound to be a drone attack, But I haven't heard that term double tap since I stopped watching Jack Reacher shows. Double tap. This is a mafia term or a hitman term.
Yeah. and Ukrainian authority used that word. We are very lucky we have got back Scott Lakeman from Salt Lake City, Utah. Sir, we are talking about the NATO's new defense posture and military spending escalation and the Hague NATO summit and defense commitments. I had a question for you. How might the shift toward a wartime mindset change NATO's operations strategy and NATO's doctrine, sir?
Yeah, I think we're seeing something quite remarkable. Mark Rutte, who's the NATO chief, used that term, the wartime mindset, in a press conference 8 or 9 months ago. But they're, they feel threatened by Russia. It's right in their backyard. So they are stepping up to produce more. They are spending more. They're improving their defense capabilities. But in addition to that, they have changed their strategic thinking. From a fragmented national defense sort of approach to an alliance approach. And the other thing that's important is that they're thinking about a world in which they cannot depend on the U.S., which I think is the right way for them to think. And so I think this is a historic moment in the history of NATO.
All right, sir. Let me check whether Norman is on the line. If he is on the line, production, can you please ensure me Norman is there? Norman, is the raising of defense spending budgets or targets up to 5% sustainable or politically realistic among member states? Because Spain already denounced that proposal.
That's a very interesting question. Spain and a host of other countries is having a difficult time producing the 5%, or like in Spain's situation, they really don't want to do it. The Trump administration put this number up because they feel that the United States should be shifting some of the responsibilities over to the other countries regarding their own security in NATO. As this moves forward, I will project there will be some countries that will say, hey, we don't have the money, we don't have the will, we don't want to do this anymore. And that will be something that will shift the change of NATO. NATO will have to evolve. Like I mentioned before, you either evolve or you dissolve. So they must do something. The United States is weaning itself away from the, the umbilical cord from NATO, moving more towards alliances with the Middle East and other countries in dealing with the security. NATO will have to learn to grow a set of legs and stand on their own if they want to survive.
All right, I've got the opinion about the NATO, but what about the non-NATO countries? I want to ask this question to Sir John Charles Dalton here. He's an international consultant. He understands foreign policy, foreign diplomacy very well. Sir, how should non-NATO countries factor in this shifting security order as partners or deterrence or alignment?
Non-NATO countries in Europe or non-NATO countries anywhere?
Around the globe.
Okay. Well, I think, as Norman has pointed out and as Scott has pointed out, we're going through some sort of a change in strategies, strategic thinking, at least, by NATO. The 5% that was offered by Mark Rutte himself, I mean, this was something that Trump didn't require, was 2%. 2% of GDP was going to be allocated in each country to their own defense. To sort of entice Trump to stop criticizing NATO, Mark Rutte said it was going to be 5% in Germany, which had already reached that level anyway. Said, yes, we're ready to go forward. Spain and others, 5% of GDP allocated to defense for NATO's defense spending, that's a lot of money. And some countries who are relatively, let's say, I don't want to say poor because they're a well-developed country, they can't afford to cut back in education and health and roads and other expenses to be able to make a standing army that big. So there'll have to be some accommodation made, as Norman has indicated. Maybe there's a two-tier structure. But I think that NATO is going to have to become more unified. It has grown incredibly since the end of World War II. It was 12 countries, now it's 32. The U.S. and Canada are the only non-European countries that are in NATO. Other people have applied to be part of NATO, but they're not welcome. So I think that we're going through some transition. We have to wait to see what's going to happen.
Right,
in this thing.
I was reading one article in one French newspaper, but that is an English newspaper. They have said that writer is a very far-right political background. He said this is the first trap to the European leaders to agree this 5% GDP for NATO, and this will start changing governments in Europe. This is a huge comment. Ladies and gentlemen, after coming back from the commercial break, we'll be discussing some more very important issues, especially Japan has got a new prime minister, and she's the first female prime minister in the history of Japan.
In Bangladesh, Grand Palace Hotel Dhaka, 22 Kakrail, Dhaka, Bangladesh.
Welcome to Grand Club at Mirpur 10 Dhaka. Elegant spa and wellness facility for ladies and gents. Play pool and snooker in international standard billiard zone. World-class gym facility with exclusive equipment for man and woman. A restaurant of delicious local and international cuisine. Fully air-conditioned building with spacious banquet, car lift, sky view rooftop restaurant, all in one. Grand Club Limited, Mirpur 10, Dhaka.
কি এমন জিনিস যেটা সব লোকে খায়? ছোটরা খেলে পরে কেঁদে মায়ের কাছে যায়, বৃদ্ধ লোক খেলে পরে মাথায় দেয় হাত, যুবক যুবতীরা খেলে পরে এদিক ওদিক তাকায়।
ছেড়ে দে শয়তান, ছেড়ে দে, দেহ পেলে আমার মন পাবি না, ছেড়ে দে।
কোন ফলের বীজ নেই বলো দেখি দাদা, বলতে না পারলে হবে তুমি গাধা।
মন্দিরা চক্রবর্তী কার সাথে প্রেম করছে?
আমি এখন মা হতে চলেছে।
চিনেছি তোমারে আকারে প্রকারে, দিনের আলো রাতের আধারে।
Still, we need to discuss the highlight and geopolitical tensions, US, China, Russian global order, Eurasia group warning Australia's intelligence review. My first question would be to Sir Dalton here. What strategies should smaller states adopt in a world where superpower rivalry intensifies gradually? Every month you can see.
Yeah. Well, my advice to all the smaller countries is to be everybody's girlfriend and nobody's wife. Do not get too closely aligned with either one of the superpowers. Bangladesh has been massively impressive at the way that they're playing all of those factors and not being overly aligned, as they're perceived to be pro-West, but they have good relations with China. They have good relations now with Japan. So Bangladesh is a case study in how to like keep everybody happy without necessarily becoming too involved. And I think that's the key. You go way back to the non-aligned movement, way back. And that with this new bipolar, and we can say maybe tripolar with Russia, is that you have to balance all of these interests at the same time, not to become too involved or be perceived to be too close to any one of those competing partners.
Right, sir. I have prepared one special question for Scott Leckman because he has deep study on this issue. Which alliances or blocks, especially Quad, BRICS or NATO, are likely to reshape or fracture, and why? This question I specially made for you, sir. Scott Leckman from Salt Lake City, Utah.
Wow. Wow, thank you. Well, we talked about NATO. I think NATO has to be stronger. I think they have no choice. Now, there are other alliances in the world. BRICS, they now have 10 countries, and they have more than 40% of world GDP. So more than the G7. And their goal is to trade less in US dollars. Now, they're not a trading bloc, and there's some tensions there, which goes to illustrate what John just said. Brazil, they don't want to have to pick a side. And there's some tensions there. There's tension between India and China. India's part of the Quad, and then you also have Ethiopia having tension with Egypt. So it's hard to see all of them getting on the same page.
All right, sir. Norman, my last question to you. Are we entering Cold War or multipolar standoff? How stable or volatile is the world order right this moment? And I will invite Sir Leckman and Sir Dalton to do a debate on this issue. We have 5 minutes.
My analysis that John mentioned and Scott mentioned is that any country right now should look at the whole multipolar picture, the world. You will have to, as a country, you have to learn to pivot between left, right, east, west, north, south. You have to pivot. You cannot afford to align yourself with any one party. I'm saying that because right now, any one party can shift. We can go up, we can go down, whatever. Whoever you align yourself with, that's the bed you sleep in. So instead of sleeping in one bed, that's basically have tickets to go to whatever's necessary. So you want to be friends with everybody, but not a slave to anyone.
All right, Dalton, I think you have something to add.
I think that's it. What I said before is I think also be everybody's girlfriend, nobody's wife. But I think that we're looking at traditional warfare, traditional enemies, when sometimes maybe cyber war and asynchronous war and using different kind of economic tools and weapons.
Trade war as well.
Trade war, I think that is going to have to be factored into the traditional way that we've looked at alliances. That, that the whole area of like the enemy of my enemy is my friend, that kind of military focus, I mean, that's kind of like Hegseth in his crazy dance on stage the other day, is all about militaristic approaches when some of the problems that are going to be faced in the world are non-military. They could be bio-warfare, they could be trade warfare, So I think it needs to be, we need to build up the capability to think beyond just simply bombs and bullets and look at what are the intellectual properties that need to be used and controlled, AI and other things, in order to be able to make sure that these problems do not advance. Huh? I mean, if COVID-19 was an accident, okay, we accept. But if it was a planned biomedical attack on society for whatever reason, that's a sign, that's a canary in the coal mine.
Yes, sir. And during the COVID-19, many people thought it is a China's virus war.
Well,
First
there's
time
some
they
people in the
believed
U.S.
it.
still think that.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are running out of time, but I have to give a special thanks to Sir John Charles Dalton, international consultant in the studio, Sir Scott Electman from Utah. He's a professor. He's a very knowledgeable person, very veteran speaker on television industry. We see him in different televisions. And a special thanks to Norman Flatburns, our geopolitical correspondent based in Washington, D.C. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to conclude today, but with two good news. One is Japan is going to get a female prime minister, and she will be the first prime minister in the history. Advance congratulations to her. Her name is Sanai. We'll see her activities very soon. We'll see you tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen.